Good afternoon and welcome everyone on this beautiful Kansas afternoon to our Connecting Kansas Counties presentation. What is the Kansas Forest Service? Now, a few housekeeping things for you. As you can see, we are recording this and we'll share out the recording link and any PowerPoint presentations from the Kansas Forest Service for those who couldn't make today's call or if you want to have that follow-up information to go back and listen to. As well, if you could type those joining, if you could type your name, your title, and your organization or county that you're with, that'd be great, just so our presenters can see who's on this afternoon's call. And then, even more importantly, any questions that you have, please type those as well in the chat box, and both Jason and Darci will make sure to get those answered as we go through today's call. And with that, and I always forget to say who I am, but I think you guys all know Kimberly Qualls with the Kansas Association of Counties. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn the microphone over to Jason to begin this afternoon's presentation.
Okay, well, thank you, Kim. I'll introduce myself, Jason Hartman, State Forester for the Kansas Forest Service. Here with Darci, Paull, our GIS analyst, and also joining us, but maybe not presenting today necessarily, is our Ariel Whitley-Knoll, our communications coordinator. So really pleased that you invited us, and we're happy to try to answer that question of what the Forest Service is and some of the services we provide to the citizens of Kansas. I'll do a little bit first and then turn it over to Darci, so we'll be kind of tag teaming, and then we'll definitely get those answers to questions there at the end. So I'll jump in, share screen here. Hopefully that's up for everybody. So, yeah, we'll dive into, so what is the Kansas Forest Service? We've evolved a little bit over the years. Starting in 1887, established by an act of the Kansas legislature to create a commissioner of forestry for the purpose of growing and procuring seedlings for the growing young state of Kansas. So that date of 1887 makes us, we think, somewhere in the top 5 oldest state forestry agencies in the country. Whether we're 3, 4, or 5 is somewhat of a debate, but we're definitely one of the longest running state forestry agencies. Haven't maintained that status as being called the Commissioner of Forestry. In 1909, the next major shift happened where we were placed under Kansas State University and became partly academic, partly service-oriented, but more broad spectrum of forestry than just seedlings and procurement of seedlings. In 1951, started an extension role through the Morrill Act funding. Added a research role in 1955, became at that time also an academic department was also established here at Kansas State University. And there was at one time, and for a long time actually, there were research foresters as well as instructional foresters as part of the faculty at Kansas State University. Changed the name in 1961 to Kansas State Research and Extension Forestry. And that was the name up until the 1990s, when we started the name of Kansas Forest Service. And in between there was a degree offered. So in all that time that we did have since the 1950s, an academic staff, there wasn't a forestry degree that could be earned as a Kansas resident. Starting in 1971, a cooperative agreement with the University of Missouri made that possible, where students could take pre-forestry courses in Manhattan, transfer for an in-state rate to Mizzou, and finish up that forestry degree. Unfortunately, that's no longer an option, but maybe that will come back someday as the interest in forestry as a career increases, as we, of course, think it should at the Forest Service. So just kind of our statutory, where we sit administratively, the statutes there on the right-hand side of the slide fall under the statutories number 76-425. It outlines what our powers and duties are that can be summarized, as it says, into those 6 main areas that we currently divide our staff planning, if you will, into. But as I've referenced Kansas State University already, and that is a unique thing about KFS. We are one of 5 state forestry agencies that are administratively housed underneath the umbrella of the state land grant institution. Us, Colorado, Texas, Nebraska, and North Dakota are those 5 that fall under this type of system. So it's a unique thing to be a state level service agency, but not be a cabinet agency, rather be a function of the university. And like it says there, we're currently under the extension arm of the university. So talking about where do we fall within the U.S. Forest Service? We don't have any direct line of reporting to them or responsibility per se. They do provide a great deal of service and funding to us, though. So we are very closely connected with our U.S. Forest Service, especially our Region 2 regional office in Lakewood, Colorado, that serves Kansas, Colorado, Wyoming, South Dakota, and Nebraska. Moving along. So who are we? What is our staff made up of? Sitting right around 35 full-time staff right now. We have 3 part-time, about 8 student assistants, and then a cadre of what we call fire protection specialists that varies from the low mid-30s to low 40s, depending on the need. And that's just a group of call when needed fire response staff. By recent additions, I'm talking within the last kind of 2 years. These are positions that we either never had at all in the agency, or the way we are formatting or structuring the position now is quite a bit different than it's ever been. For a long time, we had student IT help. A couple of years ago, we added a full-time IT person that Darci supervises and has been a tremendous asset to the agency. Some other ones, we've added a fuel specialist. We're getting ready. We're advertising right now for a volunteer and partnership liaison that'll help our community forestry program. I'll go into more detail of the different programs shortly. Some different structure of our conservation. Our urban coordinator, we've always had one, but the difference now is we have a dedicated full-time, no other duties coordinator there. Something we're excited about is what we call our tech team. This is through some of the funding that's come recently through the federal government. We've always been very service oriented. We try to give technical expertise to landowners. We haven't always had really the capacity to then go out and be boots on the ground assistants to implement the practices that our foresters and fire staff recommend. This tech team will be a little entry into that realm of kind of being more boots on the ground assistants, as well as that technical service assistance as well. And with all these new fundings, we had to have staff that would help us keep track of the reporting and that's where our grant specialist came in. So that's some of our new staff, but our nuts and bolts, our base of our staff has always been our district staff, we call them, our field staff, divided into those 3 main program areas that work in the field and have field staff. Communities divided the state into 4 sections. And those 4 individuals, ones need to get an update, I guess. One, the Northwest is based in Stockton, Kansas, Southwest in Garden City, Northeast currently in Manhattan, and then Southeast currently in Hayesville. And those individuals, what they do is they primarily work with smaller communities, but they'll work with communities of all sizes to help provide that technical guidance again on how to manage the streets that are in the public right of way. So they don't go with private land or a home lot or next to. So those would be the street right of way, parks, cemeteries, those trees, and that canopy management, inventory, planning, grants and assistance like that is kind of their main. And I'll get into some of this more later. Fire is a different animal. We've just within the last 6 years gone from all of our fire staff being located in either Manhattan or Hutchinson to having districts, as you see on the map there in the top right corner. So that's kind of a new thing we're going into, and that's just making it where we have people that are within a shorter drive distance, able to provide our volunteer fire departments with training, equipment, public education, and response support, and response being to wildfires. Rural district forestry, we're foresters. That's our foresters. That's our out in the woods helping landowners inventory, plan, and manage their woodlands, shelter belts, windbreaks, those type of things, riparian forest buffers, all of these kind of things. That's what those people in those various different districts do, with the smaller districts being in the eastern part because of population as well as prevalence of forested areas. So who do we work with? Who do we work for? I won't go. I mean, there's some numbers of kind of who our customers are. The picture here is our recent open house we had at our main office in Manhattan, Kansas, on Claflin Road. If you're familiar with Manhattan, we're located just across the street from a large medical complex on Claflin Road, and also another landmark of us is the grove of ponderosa pine trees that was planted back in those years of K-State having a forestry research function. Seed sources from all across the country were brought to this property here and planted to see which would live best in Kansas conditions, and they must have picked some good ones because we have a lot of those 1940s, 50s-ish planted trees that are still alive on our property here in Manhattan, and that's a nice addition. We've made that into an arboretum that is available to the public to come spend some time in the trees, and we've added a lot of variety of tree species to those original pines to help the public just connect with trees here in Manhattan. But this is an open house we had. Some of our partners that were there that are part of this constituents list, the Kansas Forestry Association was one of them that's in the picture here. But you can see Tree Cities, our family forest owners, fire departments, as well as the wood mills and wood harvesters are some of our constituents that we work with. Our partners, these are agencies, NGOs that we partner with. We have a lot of partners. We're a small agency, like I said, 35 employees full time. So getting our work done without the help of partners, contractors, other state agencies, federal agencies would be a much greater lift than we could handle. So it's great to have partners to help us get that work done. Our budget, these are some older numbers from the fiscal year 22. But basically, the big take home here is how big a chunk that federal funds portion is. And that is not getting any different, even as some state funds are increasing. The bulk of the funding for a state of Kansas agency is federal money. We're trying to change that, but we're happy to have the federal money. If that's what we have to work with, we'll work with it. And it is growing, as everybody has seen with the BIL and the Inflation Reduction funding that has come into the state. That is a growing portion of the budget and making the budget overall a more larger figure for us. So going into kind of our different work areas, kind of that's the broad overview, kind of focus a few slides here on our different work areas. I introduced Ariel when I first started. She's our communications coordinator. Our communications is a full-time staff of one, and then a couple other part-time people to support, and then all the full-time support as needed and requested and as available to do so. But the role of that individual is to plan, getting Forest Service known, doing things like this, make those connections, help get us our story told through a variety of ways. And one of those is our newsletter that if you scan the QR code there, you can be signed up to receive that every month. And we'll gladly help loop you into what we're doing that way. But also our website, we're trying to get it more user-friendly. Ariel's done great work in doing that and just helping share our message that way through our podcast as well, our social media platforms, and just trying to get our message out the best we can. And we also, we're still university connected. So we still do have research type extension publications that we have just for those best practices in a variety of forestry topics that can be downloaded and used for that kind of subject matter expertise resource. Also joining us today is, as I said, Darci. She'll be presenting later on more in depth of what the mapping has done for the agency, but I will just take this opportunity to say it's done tremendous things for the agency. Reporting has been much streamlined and means more by knowing where the work happened on the ground instead of just knowing it was X number of acres across the state. being able to quantify and display and easily snapshot that type of data in a geographic format has been tremendously helpful to telling our story, both to the public and also to our partners that provide funding like the U.S. Forest Service. So we're greatly fortunate to have that skill set here on staff, and both in our full-time, Darci doing that for us full-time for going on 10 years now, I believe, and also several great students that have come through, which is another benefit of being associated with Kansas State University is we get that flow of student help that we get to help kind of mold them towards a natural resources career perhaps, but they also provide us a lot of great work and assistance as they're going through their college years. Like any agency, we have to get the bills paid, we have to have the payroll, we have to do the hiring, we have to do all those important functions, scheduling, interacting with the public, being a face for our sales program and the conservation tree seedlings. These are the functions of our great admin staff that, again, utilizes those student employees quite heavily, and we are very thankful for the service they provide. But we have 4 full-time in that role. Our human resources, our grant specialist, our conservation trees specialist, and then our administrative manager work in our admin program. We also do have another admin person housed within our fire program that works closely with the other 4 on staff. So that's what keeps our administrative functions going, and also provides support for our events that Ariel does such a great job planning. In our fire program, big news there is our new release of a partnership between fire and the GIS program, and staff, and just really all staff contributed to this. But it's our wildfire risk assessment portal, or WRAP. The website there is for that. It can also be reached from our main website that I'll talk at the end and show you. But so fire management, this is the piece of fire management that the WRAP touches is keeping the public informed of the risk of wildfires in Kansas. And that's what the WRAP portal is going to do. Increase a lot is the ability for just anybody from somebody that does zoning planning for a community or county to a private landowner or a fire chief can go into this, zoom in on an area of interest, and see what the risk is and what that risk means as far as rate of spread, threat to homes and infrastructure and things like that. It was built from a Western states-wide data set that then we took some grant funding and some great student help under Darci's leadership to make it Kansas specific and useful to Kansas as well. So that's the public outreach arm of the wildfire program, as well as things like FireWise and community wildfire protection plans. We also have response. Some of you that have a higher incident of wildfires in the state may have seen some of the contracted aircraft we have now coming in to assist on those fires. That isn't something that we really even had available to us in Kansas until just a few years ago. And now we have 3, I think, 4 maybe contracted companies, and 9 or 10 aircraft that can be utilized. I mean, not all of them every day. We don't have 10 available every day, but throughout the seasons of the wildfire risk in Kansas, we can call on those as they're available to provide that assistance. Our 2 main focuses that have always been funded for the program are to provide training to primarily rural volunteer departments on how to wildfire safety and tactics, and to provide equipment through a program called the Federal Excess Personal Property, or FEP, or the Firefighter Property, FFP. Both those programs are similar concept, where any federal property that the agency responsible for it has deemed no longer needed or excess can be requisitioned by a state forestry agency like us, and then reissued out to a rural fire department for them to make it into a firefighting vehicle. We utilize primarily military equipment for this, the deuce and a half to 5 tons, HEMTTs, LMTVs, those kind of things. When it first started back in the 1960s, it was the Willys Jeeps. Those are all gone, unfortunately. They were very useful, but the military got rid of them, and they all wore out over time. But that's what that program is for. It's providing these rural communities that don't have the budget to go buy a, six-figure price tag fire truck. They can get a fire truck through this program as available. It varies in availability based on what the military has going on, but it's been a strong foundation of the fire program for a long time, and really benefits our rural communities quite a bit. And speaking of rural, our rural foresters, like I said, there are boots on the ground foresters providing all these different kinds of assistance. They connect both landowners that just want to know how to manage a forest better, just for knowing the information, all the way to getting right into a cost share program where they're working with primarily NRCS funding, Natural Resource Conservation Service funding, to really give those landowners a way to do better work on the ground to benefit riparian, stream bank, shelter belt, and woodland ecosystems for the benefit of the landowners' goals. Community forestry, again, that's those foresters that work on the publicly domain trees within city limits in various ways: outreach, education, technical planning, inventories. We have some grant fundings coming. We've always had some grant funding available from time to time for specific projects. The Bill and IRA funding is specific. We just had about 50,000 that was recently released, and applications are coming in for that. We're going to have close to 2 million that we're going to be releasing fairly soon as opportunities for communities to partner with us on some grant funding for inventories, tree removals, tree planting, things like that in some of those underserved areas of the state, as the IRA funding is targeted towards as well. So looking forward to providing that assistance in our community forestry areas. Conservation trees. I said that the agency was first established for the purposes of seedling establishment and procurement. So that's still a foundation of our work even now today. We no longer have a nursery per se. We do have a robust greenhouse program where we grow our own seedlings, just shy of 100,000 seedlings a year that we produce from seed to sell on the property here at Claflin Road in Manhattan. We also contract with several nurseries around the country to get bare root seedling for our much larger volume spring sale, where we sell both the containerized regrow as well as the bare root seedlings for any conservation purpose. So they can't be used for landscape purpose or for resale as a live plant. They can be used for conservation purposes and Christmas tree farms. That's the purpose. So if it's for a wildlife habitat, a shelter belt, a windbreak, increasing the diversity of a existing stand of trees, or Christmas tree, for those are the uses of these seedlings. And we sell those again twice a year in a fall sale from 1st of September to middle of October, and another spring sale that used to start the 1st of December. We're going to transition this year. That'll start the 1st of January and run through middle of May or so. It kind of depends on the planting conditions, how hot it's getting, how dry, things like that, how late into the season that sale goes, because we don't want to be sending sales out the door when there's no longer really a good chance to get them in the ground and established before the heat of the summer kicks in. One of our last program areas we'll touch on is the utilization and marketing. Our recent open house we had was called Seed to Saw, and we really would like to think of our services in that way, everywhere from the first seed that gets planted to grow a tree, to after the tree has had its life cycle completed and it's now can be made into a wood product or a forest product for the benefit of society. And that's anything from, the obvious things like lumber, to like here on the screen, it's showing a process of biochar, where that wood, otherwise wood waste, is condensed down through a biochar system to be a soil health additive. It can be mixed into soil to make the soil healthier and grow better crops, just be better, hold itself better, resistant to erosion. So all these different types of potential wood products are our utilization and marketing forester. He works with those industry professionals to try to make sure we're all making the connections we need across the state to try to do everything we can to have that economy be as growing and healthy as we can. Forest health, again, just like it says, we're trying to help have that subject matter expertise for invasive plants, insect disease impacts to the state, so we can provide that expertise to our citizens, our Department of Agriculture inspectors and things like that, to keep things out of the state. If they're not, it will be a threat to the forest resources, or if they're here, find ways to mitigate them, find ways to lessen the impact of them being here if they already are. So we do that through some cost share things with a lot of partners. A good example of the forest health program in the last year that some of you may have heard of or been involved with is we had partnered with other of our constituents to have a calorie pair buyback events in a couple of urban areas where people that had that calorie invasive pear as a landscape tree, if they were willing to remove it, they would be given a voucher or an actual tree to then take home and plant in place of that calorie pear they were then getting out of the potential to spread. So things like that is what our forest health specialist coordinator works on. So that's our primary areas, but as with any government entity, other things come up from time to time that we also try to do our best to help out with if called upon, or we see we can provide assistance anywhere from unmanned aerial systems, helping with the flood assistance a couple of years ago. I mentioned our arboretum. We have our Jackman demonstration forest, which is an area in Butler County that was deeded to us when a gentleman we'd worked with for many, many years passed away. So we use that as an area to both conduct some research and also do like some demonstration things for the public education. And we also do some youth hunt events there as well. The Forest Legacy Program, that one is another federal program. Baldwin Woods in the Lawrence area, Douglas County, is an example of that, where property was obtained through those funds to make sure it's not developed and is maintained in a conservation state for perpetuity. And with that, like I said, refer you to our website for any additional questions or resources you may need from us. And I will turn it over to Darci. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jason. It was a good segue. I wanted to point out our website, kansasforest.org. And on that front page, there is this nice map called View the Map. And that goes to where all our GIS data is basically stored, except for the Arboretum data is separate. And if you don't know what an Arboretum is, which I didn't know before I worked here, it's a tree zoo is what I always tell people. It's just a bunch of different species. And we have over 150 species planted out on our property. So it's a really cool place. And Ariel and I are walking through it today, and the fall color is rocking right now on our Arboretum. So it's really neat to see. So if you can make it here before Saturday in the freeze, we have a great property to come look at. I just wanted to step through our map and all the GIS data. It really helps with Jason going first as he kind of explains the programs, and then I can just show the data that we have. And all this data is publicly available. If you have GIS people, they can get it through Dask. A lot of it is available through Dask, or you can reach out to me. I love it when people look at our data. So please reach out. So we'll start. This is kind of an Esri-based map. And over here, you'll see 5 different kind of, what I've done is kind of group things by the program areas, because we think so much by program. But the first one, if you hover over it, it should say community forestry. And if you click on it, you will see all the kind of the community forestry layers that are included. And the base layer on here, I should start with that, is county data. But if you click on the county, it actually tells you who your forester is. So rural forester, community forester, and also our district fire management officer. So that is just always turned on, and it's on each one of the 5 columns over here. So Again, with the help of one of our community foresters, she's reached out and find out where arboretums are. So we wanted to give people a chance to go and view arboretums, to look at different tree species and not always think of the same 5 species that you see at Home Depot. So this is really to teach diversity and get people out among trees. So again, there should be a pop-up with it, tells you what it is, tells you where it's at. If there's a website, we've also included that. So the pop-ups, when we started going to online maps, I just love, because it just makes our data more available to people without explanation. So that's arboretums. As Jason mentioned, we do participate in Tree Campus and Tree City and Tree Line. We don't really have a tree line, I don't think, anymore. But Tree City, they have to meet so many standards. And so I update this every year. If this pops up like this, you actually hit this arrow and it goes to the next one. So let me zoom in. And then you hit, there we go. So then now it tells you Manhattan is the tree city, what county it is, how many years it's been involved in the program, population, how much is spent. So that's for each town that participates. Looking at Tree Campus, kind of the same thing. And so that's across the state of Kansas, and that's celebrated every spring. So that's when that data gets updated, when the community foresters provide that data. A program that Jason did not touch on, but people are very passionate about it, and it has always been one of my best received data and maps, is the Champion Tree Program. It is an unfunded program, and it is volunteers. A lot of volunteers help us out with measuring trees and stuff, but you can go across the state. We have 2 national champions, one in Fort Leavenworth and one out here in Western Kansas. Again, this is a cottonwood tree, but it will tell you all the information about that cottonwood tree. Not the address, we try to protect people's privacy and such, but kind of everything else that goes with it. And if we have pictures, then we include pictures, etc. So you can go around and go to your county and see what champion trees are there. So that is kind of a fun program that we do also with the Kansas Forest Service. And anyone, I should shout out, because I also manage the Champion Tree Program. Anyone can nominate a tree at any point. It's on our website. There's a form you fill out, send that in, and as my retired Champion Tree volunteers have time, they go out throughout the state. They're based in Kansas City and Lawrence, so any trees nominated there get measured a lot quicker. I also do have some forestry staff that like to go out and help measure trees. So just kind of as we have time, but been always it's a program people get very passionate about, because everyone just loves a big tree. So the last thing on community, not the last thing, getting ahead of myself. This would show our districts just for a quick look at it. Where emerald ash borer has been detected, that gets updated as we get new detections. That disease is kind of marching across the state. The community land cover, this is done for each community. We did 670 of them. A lot of help from students to get this done. If you are in a community, hopefully you have gotten this data, or will get this data soon. It just got wrapped up the last couple of years, but should be reaching out to you on this, and how much is, like, what percentage of your tree canopy in each town versus what is in impervious, and what's in bare soil, what's in water, etc. So it's been kind of fun doing this project, and adapting things as we go, because, like looking at Salina, you can see where the airport is right here. Well, we can't forest an airport. So we, some of those communities, we take that land out and then recalculate what the tree canopy is, to actually let them know this is your plantable space. So there's been a lot of good conversations around that and working with community forestry. And that's from 2015. That's the data we were working on through the U.S. Forest Service Northern Research Station. Wichita was done separately in 2017. So it's the same exact idea. It just, thankfully, we didn't have to map this, because it would have taken us forever, because Wichita is such a big town. But again, they have the same data, just a different year. And that kind of wraps up community forestry and what we have for GIS data that is public facing. Moving to the next one is forest products. Something that is very timely right now are the black walnut holding stations. These get updated every late summer, early fall. Again, the information's there so you can reach out to the people that run these and talk to them more about dropping off black walnuts. The other thing that's updated as things are changed and we find out more are sawmills across the state. Again, information with it. So you have the contact information. All of this stuff is in a report on our website also. It's just me as a geographer. I love to see everything spatially. And so to me, it makes more sense to have it in a map and then people can look at the map. Timber buyers, very similar. This is actually a regional. It's a little bit bigger than Kansas because some people will come to Kansas to buy timber. So that's a little bit different than sawmills. But again, all the contact information is available to you for those. And that wraps up our forest products data. Oops, turn this off. Going to the next one is rural forestry and forest health. I kind of lumped these two together because I could only have 5 different parts. So again, the champion trees fall both under community and rural. And when I did an analysis, it was like split right down the middle. Half of our champion trees are in rural settings and half are in community. So I would have never guessed that until I did the research on it. Again, the emerald ash borer, same thing. It impacts community and rural forestry. Conservation tree shrubs, kind of talking about what Jason covered about trees that we can plant in the landscape for conservation purposes. There's 3 different based on precipitation and climate across the state. And then you can type in an address up here and I'll type in our address for the Kansas Forest Service. And you can turn on soils and you'll see these yellow lines are the different kinds of soils. And if you click on that, it'll actually tell you the type of soil and the trees we sell and we recommend for that soil type. So this, a lot of times we recommend this for people who are planning a windbreak or thinking about planting some trees on their landscape. This is kind of just gives you an idea of how to do it without maybe reaching out to a forester, just kind of getting those initial plans in place. The tree spacing recommendations, if you see it grayed out like that, that means you're not at the right zoom level. So if you back out, there you go. Now it's not grayed out anymore. And it's done by county. So each forester kind of gave their advice on if I wanted to buy or plant a 1-row windbreak in Pottawatomie County and it was evergreen trees, I would space them 8 to 10 feet. So the thought behind the soils and the tree spacing recommendations was really to put resources into the hands of landowners in Kansas of like, they don't necessarily have to reach out to a forester. They can look here and find out a lot of that basic information. So there's a lot kind of that goes into the riparian, shrubs, tree plantings, all that stuff is just right here available for you on the map. And it's, since it's a map, it's all spatial. So it's pretty cool. Tree farms, that is another program, I think would be the right word, that we run through rural forestry. You have to meet so many different qualifications. Douglas County easily has the most. I'm always like, how am I going to fit another one in Douglas County whenever we get a new one? But we do have a few out west, but kind of where our traditional timber has been in the east is where we see those tree farms. Now, data that is not ours is these stream stabilization points and stream bank hotspots. And this is work that our riparian forester, Andy Klein, does with the Water Office and the Division of Conservation under the Kansas Department of Ag. So it's actually the Water Office data that they've let us pull in here to just see what's going on around streams. And then looking at the rural forestry districts, just kind of a quick overview of who's who and where they are. And then the rural tree canopy. This was the first stuff we had done. And this is only outside of incorporated areas, which is why we went back to do the urban tree canopy. And this is also from 2015. So you can zoom in and see where the riparian areas are, where windbreaks are, and just kind of see what the tree canopy is for your county or an area you're interested in throughout the state. And you can see, again, we have way more in the east than we do out west. And then the next one is wildfire management. Start with fire districts. These are the county fire districts across the state. I think the last time I gave a presentation, someone actually called me and told me that I had it wrong in their county. So if you see anything wrong, please let me know. I'd love to have the most accurate data possible. Again, you can click on it. It'll tell you Ness City Fire District, Ness County. And if I know whether it's volunteer paid or a combination, I also include that. With that, we have the fire stations across the state of Kansas. Again, it just gives the location, the lat long, so we know where those are out. The Wildland Aerial Suppression Program called WASP. That's across the state. And again, contact information for all of those. Reported wildland fires, the 209s. The 209s, a form you have to fill out if a wildfire is over 300 acres in grass or 100 acres in timber. Not everyone fills them out, but if they do fill them out, we do map them on here, and it's done by year. So you can kind of get an idea of the distribution of wildfires throughout the state of Kansas. National wildfire assignments, we've been mapping for about 15, 20 years. It's where our staff goes throughout the whole country. And again, you should click on it. It'll tell you what year we were there, 2016, what the wildfire assignment was, Indian Canyon, South Dakota. So we've been a lot of places, including Alaska, which Alaska just never shows up right because of the projection. So that's why it looks weird that way. But the United States does a good job of showing up. Another national data set I maintain is the prescribed burn associations across the US. And I work with Carol Baldwin on that. Again, if you click on it, it tells you what counties are involved, what it's called, and if they have a website, we include that. And then going back to the state level, starting in 2016 with the Anderson Creek fire. Since that point, we've pretty much mapped every major wildfire. We call them notable wildfires. So if they have a 209 or our staff works on the wildfire, I've mapped them. So we have all the fire perimeters, and you can zoom in and kind of see. It's interesting to me to see where the overlap is on some of these burn scars in the different years. And it'll tell you the incident name, when it actually happened, how many acres, what year, whether we assisted or not. So that data is very popular, up there with champion trees. I would say those are probably some of our most used GIS data, public facing. And then finally, the fire management districts, just a quick overview of where those are at. And then the last one, I'll show it to you, but it probably doesn't really relate to you. We have to write a forest action plan. These are our priority areas throughout the state that we really focus our work in. Also included the rural tree canopy and the urban tree canopy in this one. A few other things I want to show you on the map. These are all broken up by program area, but if you just want to look at the legend, as you turn layers on and off, they'll show up over here. So if you forget what point that or what that symbol means, you can just turn on a legend over here. If you want to look at all the layers, they're all listed in here. So instead of clicking on like, oh, I want to look at tree farms, but I also want to look at timber buyers and see how, if the tree farms are near timber buyers or whatever, and turn on arboretums. You don't have to click on a bunch of buttons over here. You can just do it in this column or in this pop-up. Another great thing about the Esri maps is it lets you change your base maps, and they have added so many base maps. So probably I use this one kind of as the default, but the other one that people would use the most is turning on imagery. And then you could turn on the rural tree canopy and really look and see how good our tree canopy is, you know, because you would have the aerial imagery with it. So it's kind of always a fun thing to do. You can print a map. So if you are zoomed into this area, and you want to print that, that's what that button is for. And then my contact information is available here to get a hold of me if you find something's wrong or you have a question or you want some more information. That really kind of covers that. So please reach out to me. I'm always trying to improve our data. And then Jason had mentioned the Kansas wildfirerisk.org. We just launched this a couple of weeks ago. Here's what the main website looks like. You go to Launch Risk Explorer. We'll start with basic. Again, you can type in any address and it'll zoom to it. And you can look at the wildfire risk around there. Turn on themes over here. We've got wildfire risk right now, but you can turn on wildfire effects. If you are someone who is planning on a bigger scale, I would recommend that you get the advanced viewer, and you would just do that by signing up right here, creating an account. Ariel and I are the ones that are approving those. So as long as you give us a viable reason on why you want the advanced viewer, you're going to get approved. And you are able to download reports for both of them. The basic viewer is kind of just how to take care of a property. Advanced viewer is a bigger picture of like managing on a bigger level, bigger scale. So whether it's multi-properties or the whole county or whatever, those are available to you. And with that, I think I've pretty much covered everything, unless Ariel or Jason can think of something I've missed, obviously.
Wow. You guys don't do much, do you? Sheesh, that's an amazing amount of information. I would have had no idea that you, and especially I love the county reports. The counties can go there and just see what's going on, you know, within their county as well as, you know, the various communities. And that's a lot of information you guys work on. A whole lot of information.
If I could, Kim, can I jump in real quick?
Yes.
I would actually, I have a favor or plea for county staff and people that work with counties. We sometimes have a really hard time getting parcel data. And it is super, super important to our staff to have property boundaries as we work with landowners. If you are in a county that is hesitant, I would really like to reach out and talk to you more about that, of kind of seeing what barriers we could get over to so our staff could have access to parcel data to help better manage the land in your county, especially with out-of-state landowners. Like I know that's a concern for counties. I've heard that many times. So just please consider giving parcel data access to other state agencies. It would really, really help us out.
And we might want to do maybe do a little call out for that, something in writing, maybe in the newsletter, or, you know, just to kind of a little something. So think about that, Darci, Ariel, Jason, and how you'd want to approach that, because we could definitely get that shared out to our county folks and just have them contact you.
Great, thank you.
And I saw we had, Ariel, thank you for sharing those links. Does anybody, this is your chance to answer a question. I know you just learned a lot of information. Some of you maybe have seen this. I didn't have any idea there was this much stuff done by the Kansas Forest Service. So now's your time to ask a question if you have it. And Jason and Darci, thank you. You did a wonderful job, like covering so much information. I mean, I loved there's so much that even as landowners, you know, homeowners, things that people can utilize off your site. And it's good. Our counties are awesome at helping to communicate information like this. So I think we have a starting point to start discussions, you know, with residents, Kansas residents, that type of thing. I'd like to continue our dialogue, you know, maybe with some newsletter articles or something like that with you all. But yeah, you're a great resource for counties. I mean, you have so much going on. Were Christmas tree farms on your map, Darcy? Were
They are
they?
not, they map
Okay.
their own. If you go to the Christmas Tree Growers Association website, they have their own map.
Okay. Because I knew you talked about Christmas trees, but I didn't see them in the mapping program. I am not seeing any questions. With Darcy or Jason, do you have any wrap-up comments that you have for the attendees?
Really just we appreciate you having us and glad to help any way we can with getting more information out. Maybe there was a question came in.
Yes, actually, Reed, you guys might want to get to know. Reed has a question. I'm working on a data story to explore extreme heat. Do you have any mapping in regard to that? Heat mapping, etc. Reed is with the Kansas Department of Health and Environment, and they also have some county-specific information that they provide. And I don't know if you're familiar with their program, but we learned about them through this monthly call. And so you guys have any thoughts about Reed's question?
I would say from a mapping standpoint, when we mapped the urban tree canopy, people outside of trees, us, what they were most excited about was having that impervious surface and having that mapped. And that is what I would use first and foremost is like that data has been created for you of where the impervious is. And we know that that's where you're going to have your heat island effects, is where you have that solar radiation being absorbed into that impervious. So I would say you start with that, but we haven't mapped anything outside of it. The other resource that I would say would be a good one would be to talk to our community forester coordinator, Matt Norval, because they are doing a lot of stuff around that on a national level. I don't know about heat urban island like effects yet, but I kind of wonder if there's not something the feds are already mapping that may be available to us.
Reed said
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Darcy. And then Matt would have some of the data to, because even just that urban canopy mapping, that I know there's ways to quantify that if it's under canopy, then the island effect has been mitigated to some percent. But exactly what that is would be, Matt would have a better concept of that. And it's, yeah, Matt Norville is his name, and his contacts on the website, so we can reach it from there. Yeah.
Thank you, Ariel, for sharing that information. Good question, Reed. You guys are important. I mean, the work you're doing, for the fact that counties have so many hats they wear and so many different people, and each county is a different size. It's not cookie cutter. So a lot of times the information that you guys have is beneficial for them in working with the county residents. So we appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. Like I said, I've learned a lot today. I would love, again, Darcy and Jason to share your PowerPoints. And so I can work with, if you want to send them to me, or work with Ariel and send them however you guys want to do that. And remember, Darcy, I want to put your call to action out for the counties. So think about the best way that we can do that.
Probably partner with DASC also on that, but I will reach out to them.
Okay.
I know it's been a conversation they're having with counties about getting that more publicly shared to where people could use it. But yeah, I would love that. I think it would really help out our staff.
That's awesome, because we even have the same, I mean, we're here at the Kansas Association of Counties, we're always looking to try to pull in the right people for the right things, but that's always challenging because of the different hats worn. So just know we're here and we're a resource for you to get stuff out to the counties. And we will get all this information shared out from today's call. I know probably other people on the call learned a lot. I know I did. But again, we're all in it, we all partner together and we can do, some great things for Kansans. So with that, we are going to have 2 possible Connecting Kansas Counties calls in November. Just pencil in November 16th and November 30th. November 16th will be a broadband subject, and November 30th will be talking about funding streams that counties used to get and no longer get at the state level. It's kind of a supplemental to the LAVTR initiative that's out there. And with that, I want to thank again our Kansas Forest Service people for joining us today. And thank you again for all your great work. And for all of those who joined the call, thank you as well. And just want to wish everyone a great day and a safe and happy Halloween. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.